Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca. I'm going to be the moderator for today. And I would like to go ahead and introduce you to Steve. I'm sure you're familiar with him already, but he is our host for today. Steve, take the floor.
Thank you, Rebecca. Honored to be here again with all of you. Thank you for joining us. And we have more people joining. And I'm excited to have you in growth mode again. Uh, the Shed Advisor webinar really is all about growth. And we want growth in a couple of key areas. As leaders, we personally need to grow because growing leaders lead growing organizations. And we want to focus on two areas of growth. Both are smarts, in other words, understanding business and how business works, but then also our health, because healthy leaders lead healthy organizations. And there's so many leaders, so many businesses that are not healthy these days. So we care deeply about both of those because smart, healthy executives deliver. They bring results for their clients, for their investors. They bring results for their families. They bring results for their teams. And we want to help you become smart and healthy. So I'm excited to introduce you today to Karen Bowman, who is also deeply invested in helping business leaders get both smart and healthy. And so Karen has been involved in business over the year, and right now she primarily serves small business owners who want to grow. And this may sound familiar, who are sick and tired of working hard, but not reaching the goals that they have set out. She brings a breadth of experience from education, corporate life, insurance, technology, and coaching, and a deep curiosity to know what small to medium-sized businesses are struggling with and how she can help them achieve their dreams with a strong focus on growing profit. Okay. And we all want profits, right? Businesses, it's the lifeblood of a business, the ability to sustain business, grow as a business. We need profits. So she provides a strong focus on growing profit. And the strategy she offers will strengthen all areas of business. She loves coming alongside business owners who are ready to do things differently and achieve extraordinary results. So, Karen, welcome. Delighted to have you here as a certified profit coach.
Well, thank you, Steve. I am just thrilled to be here and to have this opportunity to speak to your community and to people in the shed industry, as well as people who embrace the shed principles. That word has dual meaning.
That's right.
Yeah. So I should share my screen now.
Yep. Go ahead and get your content up on the screen for us to enjoy and learn from.
Go. Okay. Go.
There we go.
I just got to rearrange things just a bit so that this makes sense. So, as Steve shared, I am a certified profit coach, and this is a copy of my first book, the first edition of a book. I'm currently working on the second edition. It's hard to find time to do that, but that is a big focus of mine right now. And it is about helping small business owners to grow without huge addition to marketing or advertising. That is not the focus. So, published author, certified profit coach, and nationally recognized business growth strategist. So that's me. So I want to start with, well, I think I hit the wrong one, but this is all right, we'll just live with this. There's a simpler version of this that just focuses on these headers that I meant to share, and that's not what I did. Anyway, leads. That is an area for focus for a small business to be successful. What does a small business need to do to be successful? There's leads, higher conversions to prospect to client, getting the higher average dollars per sale, having more transactions with a client, getting higher profits. All of those things lead to that. And when those things are working well, the business owner can actually work less and spend time with loved ones. It isn't about working, if you want to grow leads, then you have to work more. We want to use strategies to leverage systems that allow us to do that without just putting in more hours. And so often when small business owners are in this space, they're overwhelmed. I don't know how you feel, but it involves a lot of areas that may not be your first area of expertise, or it may not be where the business owner is comfortable or feels like they have time. So, what do you do? Because it's true that the Pareto principle works here, that 80% of your revenue comes from the 20% of what you're doing on your business every day. So it's when that 20% is spent on those key areas, leads, prospects, conversions, that's what drives revenue growth and time freedom so that the business owner can enjoy what they're doing, instead of just pouring more and more time into it. And that, when it's spent on those key areas, these surefire areas, that's what creates a predictable path to profit.
That 80-20 principle just keeps showing up all over the place, doesn't it?
It's it's such an easy way to remind myself, that I need to invest time to work on my business and not just in it. And so often the business owner is also, well, they're really the chief everything officer, right? They're the expert on the field, in this case, the shed industry. They're the one who makes all the decisions, and it can be pretty overwhelming. So the 7 areas are leads, conversions to a prospect. So just getting into a conversation with somebody, and then being able to close that to a client, create a client relationship, and retain existing clients, getting the higher average dollars per sale, maybe frequency of sales if they come back, and then managing cost. It's a key element of profitability. All of these things won't lead you to greater profit if the costs are not managed well. And there's 2 dollar signs there, one for fixed costs and one for variable costs. And in growth, those variable costs could very well go up, but are they being managed and attended to? That's the key question. Yeah.
So can I just comment here a bit, Karen?
Please.
I think in the shed industry, leads come in all different forms. So sometimes they drive in, sometimes they send an email, sometimes they place a phone call. So it's pretty much like any retail business on that front. Conversions really now is when we go to work after somebody has raised their hand, and that conversion process, of course, is really where we now take leadership. We're hopefully spending some marketing dollars, doing marketing activities to get these leads coming in. Closing rates, of course, we're tracking. I do think many people in the shed industry then dismiss the client retention and a couple of the things coming up here, because we tend to see it as a one-time purchase. How often do you buy a shed? Well, it's an interesting question, because there are people who buy them oftener than you would think. And then there are also referrals that come out of that. And so how do we retain clients? Retaining clients means staying in touch with them. And that also helps your referral base, which is part of this. And then the average dollar sale, I'm sure most of you in the industry are good at upselling, adding the ramp, adding the workbenches, going for a bigger size so they don't regret the sale. And then frequency of sales, of course, offering a rent to own program is a way of getting some recurring revenue inside of that transaction as well. So just to kind of bring it down to the ground a little bit for our industry specifically.
Sure,
But
I appreciate that.
excellent 7 steps here.
And yeah, and I don't know how often people buy sheds. I don't know.
Some
even
people
though
do
you're
multiple
selling
times a
campers,
year.
I don't know. But so that's what creates that predictable pathway to profit. And I'm going to share just an image here of how these increases in each of these areas multiply. So I'm not going to go real deep on this, but there is a multiplicative effect, right? If you increase your leads and you increase the number of prospects you get to talk to, and you increase your closing rate, each one is there's a multiplicative effect. So your benefit, let's say it's 10%, a very modest, typical goal, and you increase each of these by 10%, the impact actually is going to be a 56% increase in profit. So I'm not going to show you the math on that. You'll just have to trust me, and you can put it into Excel, some sample values, and it goes up to 56%. So you have to have the right people in the right seats. That's Steve's area of expertise, is development of people, but that is key. And then you have to have the processes in place. And the more you can systematize on these things, then the less number of hours it's going to require, right? If you can get a system to send emails for you, then you're not spending your hours doing that. So that's my example. Anyway, people, processes, and profit. So I want to share, I have some strategies. That's what I cover in the book. I think I cover 14 in the book, and I'm just going to talk about this main one right now. And that is the key to successful marketing.
I'm going to just comment here. I put a link into Karen's website. If you go to that, there is a free book download. We'll reference that a couple of times. And, I've browsed the book, a lot of good content here, Karen. And I think I would recommend that all of you listeners get that, download it, because this allows you to kind of go back and review the content that she's really just skimming through here today.
Yeah. And skimming, and we won't get through all of it either. So you'll see a lot more in the book than I can do here. So there's a couple principles at work here. One is you want to be in a position of market dominance. Now, what does that mean? I'll try to explain. It's basically thinking about what is the unique value that you bring that differentiates you from your competition. Because you want to be selling to you want to craft your messaging that speaks to someone specifically, the ideal client. So developing that avatar, or you'll hear that word used a lot, depending on who's talking, but the idea, who is my ideal client? Who do I most want to engage with? Who can I provide the most value to? And maybe as things develop, you have multiple ideal clients as well. You can develop a marketing strategy for each of those segments, whether it's the retail homeowner or it's the developer, or I don't know what all the opportunities are, right? You all are the experts on Shed. And then, and what's the motivation of that client? Who is it? Getting really specific. Who am I trying to speak to? And then, so that's really important, because that affects everything all of your messaging. It affects what you print on your business card, on your flyers. It's how you answer the phone. It's how you interact with clients. And it's also on your website. It's in your digital ads, wherever it shows up. It's going to be based on that, the strength of that position of market dominance. And who are you trying to talk to, and what value do you provide? So right now, we're going to focus on how do you convert. So let's say we know who our ideal client is. We want to convert them to a prospect first, just someone to take it a step further and show interest. And you really have to be able to enter into the conversation taking place in their heads at the right time. at that specific time. Because they've got a problem. They've got a number one question on their mind, and you need to be able to figure out what that is at just the right time. So how do you do that? How do you read their mind? Well, it really requires putting yourself in the client's shoes, looking at their problem from their perspective. What is the problem that they're trying to solve? And also remembering that this problem is an emotional one. Whether we like to admit it or not, buying decisions are made on emotion. We've got a problem we can't get rid of and a solution that we desperately need or want. It might be a low want or it's a need. And we don't like to be sold. We hate to be sold, but we do love to buy. We do love to solve our problems. When we feel ready and willing, we're ready to go. And so you really have to understand that if you're going to engage with that client, you need to come at it from their perspective and appeal to their emotions.
And I'm going to I don't want to interrupt, Karen, but I'm going to make a comment here. I think we probably have a few people on the business on our call here today that are B2B in their relationships. So they may provide a service to the industry. So they're working for a company. Their ideal client is a business. And I just want you to be clear, if you're trying to sell a service or something to a business, you're still dealing with a buyer who is a human being. And it's fundamentally no different. You just have to be in front of the person who can say yes or will say no. And it will still be, exactly as Karen said, a buying decision primarily based on emotion, not price, not want another thing. It's primarily how you've made them feel and how they're feeling about this decision. One of the primary movers.
It's I don't like to admit it about myself, but I look on my past buying behavior, and so often between my husband and myself, and he tends to be actually the more emotional one. But anyway, we have made lots of buying decisions based on emotion. The most recent was replacing our HVAC, and we didn't even shop it. We bought the high-end model without even getting other quotes. So yeah, because we really like the guy. Okay. True composure.
Hey, Karen, I think we might be losing you audio.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Rebecca, can you hear her? Is it me?
I can hear her, but it was kind of going down a good amount.
It's just fading away a little bit.
Yeah, it was fading.
I'm gonna just say a test.
There we go.
There we go. That's better.
I don't know. Okay. I'll speak loudly just in case it starts to fade. If it does, let me know and I
will.
Mike.
Technology.
I don't know. So the conversion formula, how do you do that? How do you trigger that emotional response and create a prospect or a client or even get your current customer to buy again? It's captivate, 4-part formula, just like hydrogen, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen gets you water. If you can captivate them with a headline that states the problem that they can't get rid of, then you short-circuited that conversation because you're not talking about yourself. You're talking about things from their perspective and you're tapping into their problem. Fascinate, a subheadline that states the problem, the promise of the solution they want and desperately need. So you're the one that can provide the answer to that problem. And then comes educate. So it's the information. This is where the rationale comes to support their response. But they've already responded in some way, on some level. And now you're going to support that with the information. We've been in business for 35 years, or, we're the most trusted name in the valley, or whatever it is, right? And then comes a close. And a close is not necessarily a sale. It's a compelling offer. It is so compelling that it's irresistible. Like, and so what do you get for that? You give them something, and in exchange, you get their name and email to continue the conversation. So you've established a relationship with them. I don't know for the shed industry what that would be. It might be a downloadable guide to figuring out the square footage you need. I don't know. I don't know what it would be, right? I'm making stuff up. But the idea is to give them an offer that they would be silly not to download or to sign up for.
Yeah, and if I can just comment there, Karen, I think one of the mistakes we make is thinking that the only close is when they give me their credit card or their check. There are usually a couple of closes where we get them the next step toward getting their credit card or check. And so even for the shed industry, you know, let's be honest, I'll just disclose one of what I thought was a pretty successful strategy back in the day. We had a buyer's guide that you got so far into the journey. If you're online, they could click and download a buyer's guide in exchange for their zip code and email address and or a phone number. So some way we reach out, but they get incredible value to be sure they address the 5 biggest questions in making the right decision buying a shed. So that's a close, right? But it's a low, early stage close. But every one of these has to happen first before they're persuaded to give you that step. And I do think as the shed industry in general, we're not very sophisticated often in the buying process. And to think of these multiple steps in the close, take leadership and ownership of that process. This is great content, very helpful.
So if you are taking notes by chance, or maybe you'll get it later, these are really key things to remember. That you want an ad or a presentation, a digital presentation, or even in print, something that captivates, fascinates, educates, and then closes. And I'm going to show some sample websites. And the first one is what not to do. So this is an entertainment lawyer. And I get it. This is the About Us page. But there is nothing on this site that looks at the problem of the client. It's all about the business from the business's perspective. And in this case, it's John Michael Esquire. And if you can't see this right now, if you're listening in, it's a photo of a lawyer who looks like a young, aggressive lawyer with his arms crossed. And the bio is about him. And the question is, what's the offer? How do I engage with these folks? Well, there is a pretty good contact form on this page. I would say there's nothing that compels me. I know if I submit my question or ask for an appointment, then either way, they're going to try to get me an appointment, right? It says they can get, let me share this, get a free case evaluation. Again, it's not compelling. The only information on the screen is about the different areas that they address. So I'm kind of hard on this site. It is typical of a lot of websites that focuses on the business, the owner or the product, and not as much on the client's problem that they're trying to solve. This is the second one, a lot more attractive. It's about a spa and relaxation business. It has very engaging photos of people receiving services, but it has no way to interact with them except to call them. So there is no offer at all. And if I were to visit this website, they would never know it unless I've called and made an appointment. So now I'm showing one that is not perfect and not ideal. It's got a lot more going on though. This is a child psychologist. She does not really look at the problem of the parent who has a child who needs help. She lists about 10 different issues children go through or might go through or deal with that parents are looking for help with. And she does offer a free consultation. So it's a pretty good offer. 30 minutes with the doctor. And oh, it says Dr. Freud. We did change the name of the psychologist, and get the advice you need today. And you can schedule a free consult. There's a video you can watch. If you are into agony, you can read hundreds of pages of articles. That's probably not a selling point. So as good as it is, and she was getting pretty good results with this free consult. Well, I won't say pretty good. She was getting some results. She was at least giving people an opportunity to offer name and email, right? And to establish contact. We decided to help her, one of my colleagues, I say we, to find a way to speak to the pain. So we, instead of redoing the website, we created a digital ad. So the website was still there. This is not part of the website. This would be an ad that would be presented on some platform based on search criteria. And it has the captivate. Are you sick and tired of the yelling, screaming, and belligerent attitude of your child? And if you're not seeing this, it's an image of an angry child. It's very compelling. It creates quite an emotional response. I've had people just like, they don't even want to look at the ad because it's painful. Get the secrets to gaining and maintaining complete control of your child in less than 60 seconds. So doesn't strike with me, but if I were the parent who is dealing with this behavior problem in a child, what have I got to lose? I give my name and email, and she's going to give me the secrets. Time to restore peace and quiet in your home. Fill out the form below and discover how you can regain the peace in your home in just a few easy steps. The best part of all, it's free. So that is an ad that converts. It creates not a client, but a prospect, right? That you've moved the person along to helping them find a solution to their problem.
Yeah, and if I could just insert here, this does, this fits the shed industry. We don't always think about it in this way, but most people buy a shed, whether it's for a backyard office, playhouse, chicken coop, lawnmower storage, man cave, she shed, whatever it is, they're more motivated by pain than they are by the intended desired outcome. They want to get rid of the pain that's being inflicted because the garage is full, or a host of other things. And identifying that pain and providing a stage one offer to educate them about how to address that pain with a backyard structure. Again, it's a great way to generate active leads and prospects. So
all the people that inherit stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you do with it? I don't want to decide right now, Yeah.
And you know what the pain is your customers are experiencing. Be sure you identify and understand it, and then use that also in your lead generation activity.
And you may identify clients. I mean, especially in B2B, it may not be this. B2B is a different pain point, but there will be a pain point.
Correct.
That would motivate somebody to seek a solution to a problem and then speak to that. But this is an example. So I want to share what the results. They get an educate. They get a thank you video if they sign up for the secrets, and then there's a script. As a parent, are you struggling to gain control? And she could tell us who she is. I can help parents like you every day learn the techniques. So that was where the educate came in, kind of rationale for why that was a good choice. And so what happened? She was getting, by whatever means, about 300 leads a month. And this is what was before, right? Just based on her website and her marketing. And so 10% of those, about 30, would call to ask about the consultation, right? Just based on this, get a free consultation. And then 10% of those would become new patients. So that's about a 1 to 2% conversion rate. So out of the 300 leads, she's getting one or two that became would consent to the consultation and become a new patient. So then when the digital ad went in, it had its own mechanism for capturing information. And she's still getting the same number of leads. We didn't do anything to increase the number of leads necessarily. But instead of 30, she's getting 60 that request the offer. So now 6 are consenting to the consultation and 6 are becoming new patients. So at her average sale price of $800, that was an additional $2,400 a month, or almost $29,000 a year from tweaking that one strategy with the creation of a powerful ad. I feel like I want to say, are there any questions? But I know you can't ask me.
So do be thinking about, are there questions anywhere along the way that you'd like to ask? We're going to give you an opportunity to do that here a little bit later in the presentation. So jot them down so you don't forget what they are, make notes, and we'll be happy to take those.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the buyer's journey. So it's really critical to understand that your buyer, only 1 to 3% of us are actually ready to buy at the moment that we interact with someone, which means there are 97 to 99% of us that are somewhere on this road, right? We become aware of a product or service. We have a mild interest, what's out there. Maybe I'd want to do this. Maybe I wouldn't, and why should I buy? What shouldn't I buy? Who should I buy from? Actually is a further step down the road. And if you keep that in mind, well, let me say it this way first, that you have the opportunity to continue that relationship because they just haven't decided yet. They're still deciding whether or not they want to buy. And now do I need a shed or not? Would it solve my problem? I don't know. And then they're going to, who should I buy from? And if you continue that relationship, then you position yourself in a stronger place. You establish that position of market dominance because you're the one who has kept in touch, provided valuable information, and not just 5% off coupons or something like that, not just another holiday sale, but actual value that speaks to the problem that the client's trying to solve. You can think about what that would look like in the shed industry. What are customers really looking for? Well, one way to stay in touch with them and to keep the communication going is a drip campaign, which is an automated sequence of value-add communications sent directly to the prospect, client, customer, or patient. And it follows that buyer's journey. And it communicates with customers on this predetermined and scheduled basis. Maybe you run an email campaign for 12 weeks or 12 months or some period of time. The key here is value add. This is not something that you don't want it to just be deleted because it's annoying. You want them to actually get value from the content that you're providing. and it nurtures that relationship through the stages of education to purchase. I want to go back and talk about the psychologist because she wasn't getting everyone, right? She was only getting 6 to ask about the consultation at the end of it after the digital ad. So 54 were not engaged in her services yet. They had downloaded it, but they hadn't scheduled. So they go into the drip campaign. And let's assume we're going to do it for 12 months, and that each month, 2 of those 54 become clients. So a small percentage of the 54 will become clients. And this is what it starts to look like over time. So let's say in the first month, there's 54 new prospects. In the second month, 2 of those have become clients, but you still have 52. And then the next month, 2 more became clients, but you still have 50. Well, in the meantime, you're adding a new batch of 54 every month to the campaign. So there's this pyramid that develops, and over the course of a year, I'm going to tell you in a second the total, but this incredible number of new clients, and they just had not bought yet. So she was already getting 72 new clients from the ad, and that she was getting, because she's getting 6 a month, 12 months, 72 clients. And the drip campaign creates 156 new clients. So these are the people that if she had never reached out to them, they would have never converted without that additional contact, without the drip campaign. So by the end of the year, she's generating 30 new patients every month. So the question is, can she even handle that logistically? This particular psychologist, I don't know at what point she couldn't handle it, but she was so successful with this, she started licensing her secrets, her program, to other psychologists because she couldn't handle that many new patients. Any comment on that, Steve?
No, this is a powerful model. And, I know it works in the shed industry. Okay. Personally have experience with it. Not everybody that comes in and inquires, whether it's phone call, email, or drive in, is ready to buy right now. We love the one-time close where somebody comes in, we can walk them through a process. They give us the credit card, step 1. But for most in the industry, that is, less than 50%. And we're losing all the rest of those contexts because number one, often we don't capture any information, whether it's on the website, and we can't capture because we don't offer value. So offer value, capture information, and then stay in touch with those people. A way of continuing to communicate to them as they go through their buyer's journey. And I like your emphasis specifically on adding value in that drip campaign. This can be what you would typically educate a client on in the sales process. Break it down into a series of email campaigns that just educates them on the things they need to think about: the square footage, the style, the warranty issues, the permitting issues. There's just a host of things. We sell sheds every day, and we forget what it's like for somebody who's never bought one in their life to come in, what all the issues we need to think about. Well, just educate them over that period of time, give them true value. And if you do that, they're on that buyer's journey, you're staying in touch, you will be top of mind once they get ready to decide who we're going to buy from. No guarantee you're going to get it, but you'll be top of mind because you've been providing value to them. And it's a way of continuing to build that relationship.
Yeah, so important. to understand that if you really want to assert that position of market dominance, you have to think about what unique value you can provide that positions you there, and then provide value even before they become a client.
Right.
And that's just
And I would say the big challenge I see is that probably in the industry historically, most shed lots, most retailers have thought about the drive-in client. And even the drive-in client, many of us have not done well with capturing any contact information. Well, think about what your strategy is and why should they want to give you their contact information. Find a reason that you're actually going to add value. They're happy to give you their phone number, email address, even if they're early stage. And a high percentage of people will do that if you provide them some value for it. If they see a reason, you make a clear, compelling case. So this is where, as you said earlier, maybe step back, work on the business, kind of get outside of it. Picture yourself coming in for the first time. Why would I tell somebody what my name and phone number is? Well, we do it all the time if we believe it's in our best interest. We don't want to just be another lead, that just gets now a bunch of garbage. So we resist that. That's why you have to add the value. And you can do that in the shed industry, but you have to be thoughtful about it. Be unique. Don't just copy somebody else. Build your brand around the value you add to your prospects that become clients. And of course, you want to keep this going, then communicate to your clients with some sort of drip campaign so they remember you for the next purchase, for the upgrade, for the referral to Aunt Sally, who now needs a shed, and those sorts of things.
Or I'm sure these sheds require some maintenance and upkeep, right? Like
that's correct.
How to stay on top of that. There are lots of possibilities. Yeah. Well, I don't want to get into something else if we're out of time, but so Rebecca and Steve, you'll have to.
Yeah, we've got another 5 to 7 minutes before we go to Q&A.
Okay.
If you have something.
I do. I can.
You have a lot, I know. So we'll take whatever you think the next best piece.
Very familiar to you, and that's upsell, downsell, and cross-sell.
Yeah.
So, fries with that, right? That's the example. Do you want to increase the size of the drink or whatever? Those are all upsell opportunities. So that's a primary strategy for driving additional revenue, initiating longer life cycle revenue opportunities. So downsell is when someone declines your product, so you offer them an alternative at a lower price. Well, what I think is right for you, perhaps I have this meal without fries, or I'm making something up, obviously. So the goal is to turn the prospect into a client, so you not only realize some short-term financial benefit, but you gain the opportunity to do business with them again in the future, because they may only afford the low-end product today, but a year from now they may be ready for the higher end. And downselling retains clients. So like example of a health club, they sell a 1-year gold membership program, but the prospect declines the membership. So then offer the prospect a low risk, low barrier to purchase option, 90 days health makeover membership, or 1 week trial membership. So there's some way to keep them going. Example of florist sells a dozen roses for $50. Well, that sounds cheap, actually. Just one $25 alternative downsell daily would net an additional $8,000 annually. So they say no to 50, but well, what if you can do one $25 alternative that builds income? So that's only one possible downsell. Suppose they have floral alternatives for weddings, lower price options for funerals, and so on.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump in here just a second,
Sure.
talking to the shed industry, and in the shed, most retailers offer some sort of lease purchase program now in the shed industry, and there are retailers who are doing single digits, 9% of their units going out rent to own. There are dealers who are doing 80-90% going out on lease purchase programs, and there are certain kind of biases around: is a rent to own lease purchase program a good value? Can I offer it as a service without feeling guilty because, quote, it's expensive? Well, it's actually something you can do as a downsell. Somebody doesn't have $5,000 for 160 square feet of space, but they would have $500 for the next 2 months. And maybe that's actually all they need. Do a $500 transaction, provide for them, and they can decide whether or not they want to keep that as a recurring, sale, a recurring, and possibly buy it at some future point. But it's a way of taking a lot of risk out of a big purchase and still having the option. And I think we fail to miss some of these opportunities to downsell. A downsell is about, I'm investing a lot less right now to meet my current pain point. And rent to own is one of those options. So thank you.
Yeah,
You're
the
welcome.
opportunity
You're welcome
to-
very much, folks.
Yeah. And think about the opportunity to then develop that relationship over time.
Correct.
Because even if they can't keep it right now, maybe next year they're ready.
Nope. They'll be back and they may be a cash buyer then. Yeah. And so I see this, I've seen this in the industry. So it's a great way to downsell. And of course, a lot of companies also have economy models where you can get the same coverage, the same square footage, just fewer bells and whistles. It's not as attractive. Doesn't have all the features, and aesthetic things. Great downsell opportunity. Same square footage, same kind of function for less money. And it's also why often you start high or at least mid-range in your first offer. So you have a place to back up to if in fact their budget doesn't meet it. And you can also go up. So again, just a little bit of a strategy there so you can actually downsell. If you start at the bottom, you have nowhere else to go.
Upselling and cross-selling. So I'll just be real quick here. So I'm running out of time. But upselling means offering a higher grade or quality or size of the item that the customer may be interested in at the point when the customer is ready to buy. And then cross-selling is offering other products or services which complement the item the customer is interested in at the point when the customer is ready to buy. 34% of prospects will buy additional products or services if they are asked to do so. So that's the takeaway. Don't forget to ask if they want the flower boxes or whatever it is that can go with.
And in the shed industry, it is flower boxes. I think the number one pain point I've heard is you have a delivery driver goes out and installs the shed. They're finished installing the shed. They look for the final payment, and the customer says, "How am I going to get my mower in there?" And the delivery driver says, "You mean the salesperson didn't tell you we sold ramps?" Yeah, the salesperson didn't tell us we sold ramps. Well, that was a disservice to the customer. But it's also an upsell. They'd have had more commission, and really actually serve the customer better. Same thing with lofts. You can, exponentially increase the storage space in a unit by adding shelves, loft space, all those sorts of things. And that's a way of actually serving by getting them their best value. Upselling, cross-selling. How about adding a children's playhouse with the same order? We can bring it on the same truck. So there are many, many opportunities there. And you guys are smart. So let's go ahead and go to questions. A lot of good content here, Karen. And kind of like whetting our appetite for a lot potential more content, but we are about out of time. So who has any questions? And Rebecca, we didn't tell people they could enter them in chat, but I think we're okay with that as well. Jot any questions you have in chat, or just raise your hand here, unmute, and we'll entertain a few questions. I don't see anything at the moment, but Karen, let's just maybe take a few minutes for somebody here. How have you seen drip campaigns work, say, going after, or maybe you've not thought a lot about that or worked with that? You've got a client and you continue communicating with the client.
I think until they unsubscribe, they must, they can provide value if that person
Right.
is still on that journey. If they've relocated to an apartment or something, they may not have a need anymore and they don't. But I think there's the opportunity to keep that connection alive. You mentioned the value of referrals. I know I've referred people to people just because I was still aware of them and they had earned more of my trust and respect just through their communications. So,
Correct.
though maybe I hadn't been a customer, but I was still willing to make that referral. So I think
Yeah.
there's great opportunity there to keep going with it.
Yeah. And I think, in the shed industry, again, staying in touch with customers, it's amazing. The average American, if I understand the statistics correctly, moves at least every 5 years. That doesn't mean they move out of town or across the country. They may move in the area. They're upsizing their home or downsizing as they retire. This means they are potentially a client every 5 years. And sometimes they'll add a second one. And so we often don't see customers as recurring clients. And I think that's a mistake because a certain percentage of them are. So let's stay in touch with customers, ask for referrals. And sometimes you can incentivize asking for referrals. Hold customer appreciation events where you invite them to come back and just see you again and have conversations, build a culture of this sort of interest and engagement. Provides great opportunities for, again, repeat sales, upsells, and referrals.
So,
Anything else you want to say here, Karen?
well, I see there's a question in the chat.
There we go.
If you want me to address it, about how to raise the average dollar per sale and still be competitive. I think so often we get in, hyper price focused. And remember, you can't compete on price. It's a race to the bottom, basically.
Yeah.
You have to look for ways to add value that makes your price still desirable and feasible. That would be my 2-second response.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add one of my favorite illustrations is bottled water.
$2.79 now.
Okay, $2.79 in a convenience store. I have paid $5 for a bottle of water on a golf course at the ninth hole, in a 90-degree day. I'm not going to walk back to the clubhouse. I want that bottle of water, and suddenly $5 for that bottle, which costs the producer exactly the same to produce. But the added value is the proximity to you at a specific point of need presented in a particular way. So how do you do that? Shed industry can do that all over. What's additional value you bring because of? Ask the question, where's the value lie? And how can I increase the value for things that people actually value? It's not just commoditizing the product itself and then price shopping. And so it's, I just use the illustration in a hotel. You can go to the faucet and drink water out of the faucet at a hotel. Sometimes they have a bottle of water and it'll, downtown city somewhere, big city, it'll be $6 if you use that bottle of water. I've paid $6 for that bottle of water. I could have gone down to the lobby and paid $3. I'm not getting dressed again, going out in the hallway, down the elevator. You know, the value's there for me. Now, I don't always do it, but occasionally you do. So how do we create value? How do we create value and then communicate that value so that people value it enough to pay what you need to be successful? Okay, we are up against time. Karen, thank you so much for being here today. Again, if you're listening to the call, feel free to reach out to Karen. She does take coaching clients. She has the great book offer, has a free kind of consultation offer on her website, KarenBowmanProCoach.com. And the download is there. Again, I downloaded the book. Really good content there, Karen. Appreciate that. Look forward to second revision as well. And that contact information, these webinars are on YouTube as well. Feel free to go back. You can listen to them on our call-in number and also see them on YouTube. So share them with friends and look forward to seeing you again later this month, because we're going to have 2 in July just because I missed my June one. Is that it, Rebecca? Okay, we're all good. Thank you so much and wish you all a successful day adding value to your clients.
And thanks for letting me join you today. I loved it. It's great fun.
Certainly honored to have you here.